Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be showing you how to operate the Saab 340b. Now one thing I want to say about this airplane is it's a little bugged. Not like game over bugs, but to the point I wouldn't necessarily recommend zipping around in VATSIM with it unless you're doing visual flying, but hey, teach their own kind of a thing. Let's get started. So first of all, we have a couple little exterior elements we have to take care of here, making sure everything's kind of unplugged. Love the sheer scale of this. I could definitely crawl underneath it. That would not be hard to get underneath. Fortunately here, we have none of those nasty gear pins that we have to always forget about. Covers are covered, and one thing that's kind of fun with this aircraft, at least I think is kind of fun, is when you run over here and actually hit this little switch to open this door, it actually goes through the entire, I need to turn my own volume down, there we go. It goes to the motions. I'm just going to stand right here. This seems like a perfectly, and of course, not a bad thing. It's just kind of funny. All right, let's go ahead and climb inside. Now, this particular aircraft, believe it or not, introduction 1984. They produced these from 83 into 99, so they've had many, many years to work on these. It's a neat plane. It definitely has that kind of modern feel, but again, it also kind of has that cheap 80s feel, and I don't mean cheap in like a bad way. I'm just saying that's just kind of the vibe I get from fiddling around with this one. The general vibe of this one, like I said, other than that, is everything is kind of laid out and it's intelligently done. It's one thing I really respect about Swedish aircraft. They definitely get it when it comes to putting things in places that make it easy to get to, and you'll see what I mean when we get started. All right, speaking of which, let's get started. So this aircraft, relatively straightforward. Like I said, nothing too weird about it. Universal FMC is a little different, but nothing crazy like that. I like the fact that several of these things do not work. Not a bad thing. It's just kind of one of those things you want to kind of be mindful of is the best way to say it. All right, let's make our way down. Everything's good here. We're going to switch to fuel. Again, I like how everything's got an auto. That's the way it should be. Swinging down here, propeller, you can see this is all auto. You can manually feather. We're going to leave the switch out a little later on. Ignition, we're going to make sure that's off. Start, lights, everything's good to go. We're going to turn on the beacon light. We'll pop on the landing lights too, or the nav lights, I should say. Coming down here, all good. We can do all of our tests. This switch does not work. Now, if you have SPAD next, you can actually override the position of the switch, but we don't have one. So unfortunately, that's going to make you insane. You'll see what I mean. Coming down here to essential electricity, you can see our essential avionics bus. We'll hit that in a second. So we're going to start by grabbing our batteries, popping those two on, and then we're going to pop on the essential avionics. Delightful. Coming down here, we can break the tie if we need. There's the external power switch. We've got a couple switches for cabin sides. Awesome. Swinging up here to air conditioning. Not that this matters in this game's sense, but we can sit here and, of course, set these to the most uncomfortable position possible for our crew here. This looks good. This looks good. Now you have recirculating fans. Not a bad idea to get those going right away. It kind of helps a little bit. Our bleeds, again, automatically, all completely done. You have a pressurization here. Looks good. FS, all that stuff is all taken care of right there to make it a little bit easier. Swinging down on this side, now we can go through, take a look at our lovely circuit breakers. I love how this is definitely a photograph that somebody cleaned up. Coming through here, you get the little handheld microphone. I really like the way that they do the transmissions here. You have just like a little knob for basically controlling its volume. I don't know, I just find that like really nice. I don't know. You have your flight recorder here. I don't need to put anything in here. My parking brake has already been set, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. Swinging around, if you want to get rid of this one, you just have to kind of come down here and click there. That's going to open up a couple extra things that do nothing. Don't worry. Like I said, no problem, no problem. Swinging over this way, of course, we've got a Collins. That unit will be out. You've got one warning light here. You've got a FI stop. Like I said, don't worry about that. It's not going to cause any issues. And then you've got this brilliant annunciator panel. Why is it brilliant? Because it points the direction you need to worry. That's awesome. I wish all airplanes had that. It's so convenient, so convenient. Swinging down here, I like this little card somebody made and ran it through the laminator. I don't know, stuff like that puts a smile on my face because it feels very authentic. Doesn't wiggle around enough, but that's perfectly fine. Swinging over on this side, of course, so we've got all of our light switches, but more importantly, if my little button will work here, we've got our handy-dandy setup for our altitude. Now, we're down here in Nantucket today. We're going to be flying up to Bradley International Airport, making it kind of easy. So we're going to do ourselves at relatively a short altitude. We'll treat this as a visual flight of 8,500. We can go a lot higher than that, even in this distance, but that works pretty well for us. I love the climb button on this, and I'll demonstrate that when we get there. I like how it says approach mode, but it seems to work perfectly fine as a climb mode. I'm not the one who complains. I just fly the plane, kind of a thing like that. One other thing I want to set up over here is I want to go and take my sector, and I'm going to click this once, and if I click it one more time, theoretically, this screen should change. It won't because of the mode we're on right now, but I do promise you in a minute when I reset everything else, it will kind of kick on. And you get your flight director, but nothing's going to work yet because, as I mentioned a few moments ago, we don't have power for that. This is just for starting. All right, speaking of starting, let's get started. Very, very easy to start this one. That's one thing I kind of like about it. Basically, you have a power setting, you hit the power setting, and when that's done, you basically kick on the fuel when it's ready. Let's come down here. So first things first, we're going to double check to take this, and we're going to set the power in the ground position. we're going to double check to make sure our condition levers are kind of neutral and off here. To use this, by the way, you got to click and drag and it snaps. So see how it kind of snapped in that position? You want it to snap into the start position. And we're not going to do that, of course, until we get everything else going here. FMS and all that, we're going to deal with in a few moments. But for now, let's go ahead and start the party here. All right, come floating up here. We've got our ignition control. We're going to set this to the normal position. Easiest way to do that is just click like that and just sort of pushes it up. Starting, so easy. Just grab it, pull it to the size you want to start. What you're going to notice here is over here on the right, there's going to be, you normally show a little bit of torque, but the first thing that you notice is our engine RPM starts sliding upwards. We're basically looking for peak here, and about 15% is pretty peak. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to gently slide this into the start position. When you do that, you're going to get a little ignition warning here. That's correct. That's exactly what you want it to do. Your temperature should come up pretty much right away. If it doesn't, I'd be very concerned. And of course, you can hear actually very quietly the actual engine itself. I don't know what the deal with that is. That was something I was reading about on the forums. Apparently it's an issue. So that takes care of that. That engine's spooling up. We got our T's and P's are where they need to be. And of course, our fuel flows are coming up smoothly. That's exactly what you want. Like I said, not a lot of drama there. And just kind of pop itself out of that. Of course, we're going to go up to reset first. And then we're going to pop that to the on position. Coming over here, we can pop that, of course. They will not let you play with the AC heat. So don't even worry about it. All right, that's taken care of. We'll go ahead and get the other one started. We'll jam that to the left position. And again, all we're looking for here is that everything spools up smoothly. There we go. It's about 10%. Let's go ahead and get our hand on the control. Right there. Snap that on. You can see the fuel flow came on right away. We're just going to monitor the temps. RPM smoothly rising. By the way, this little electrical with the arrow will never go out. Again, because we can't turn our inverter on, which, again, how did somebody miss that in testing? Like, I feel like that would be the first thing you'd be nervous about. Like, people chase red lights. Like, that's just how it goes with airplanes. All right, temps are good. The two engines are smoothly warming up here. We can go flip them both to the run position. Basically, min. So I'm going to go snap them into just like this. This is going to be min condition. That's going to come spooling itself up. And again, it's only going to do a couple RPM. While we're at it, we'll go ahead and pop this to the reset position. Let that go to on. Make sure LDAT turns on. We're going to have a couple warnings here. Looks good, looks good, looks good. Pop our avionics switches on. That's going to get the rest of the party started. And we can't do anything about this light. You could just sit there and I'll watch it taunt you forever, kind of a thing like that. But the good news is everybody's booted up. It's just basically a matter now of everything to kind of smoothly run up. This is going to slowly go ahead and get itself going. And of course, we're going to get the FMS all programmed. The FMS on this thing is a snap. It's very, very simple, as you'll see in a few moments here. All right, go ahead and top that to auto mode. I'll pop that to altitude mode, let people know we're around. It's going to say, is this what you want? Of course, it's what I want. Press enter. So to get this thing set up, there's a couple different ways to do it. The method that I like to use is I like to use the FIPL page because it's just easy. What you do is you go to the FIPL page. It will show you the starting position, which is MVY. And of course, we're interested in going, like I said, over to Bradley today. So if I push this button here, it allows you to dial in the destination. So let's say we want to go to Norwich first. We'll do ORW here. I'm going to press enter. It's like, is this what you meant? Yes, of course, it's what I meant. Then we're going to come in here. We're just going to go ahead and dial in our next destination, which will be Bradley. I'll press enter. It's like, is this the one you want? You go ahead and press enter just like that. And now you're good to go. So you can see here we're traveling from Martha's Vineyard to Norwich. This is 63 miles. Then we're going to get to Bradley, which is another 40 miles past that point. Now, another thing you can do is if you come in here, you can actually dial in all of your weights. So let's say we're carrying 23 passengers. Come in here, cargo, let's say I've got 500 pounds of cargo. Just press enter like that. Zero fuel weight gets calculated. All your other fuel stuff gets calculated as well. And I can see I've got 2323 fuel on board. And again, if you hit the perf page real quick, you could just confirm to make those numbers actually make sense. And again, you can see we're burning through that already because our engines are running just the way that they should be, which is absolutely awesome. So at this point, we have just a couple more switches to chase, or lights to chase. You can see park and brake and anti-skid. Anti-skid is very simple. It's tied in with our hydraulic system. You just go click like that, and now you'll watch these pressures come up smoothly, which is exactly what it did. We now have ice protection warning. That one's just yelling at us to go ahead and run up here and check our standby pitot heat, as well as our window heat. So we're going to snap those on, and it'll be good to go. Coming down here, we'll have two warning lights, parking brake, and the other one will be electric. We can't touch this. There's nothing we can do about this, sadly. So with that all taken care of, let's take a look care of a couple kind of chores before takeoff here. We're going to go ahead and snap in a click of flaps. We're pretty lightweight, so I'm not so worried so much about using a ton of flaps here. So that'll get us plenty of fuel. All right, so coming down here, we have this very, very, very fancy little system here. This is the constant torque on takeoff switch. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to take this, you're supposed to dial it to the amount of torque that we need and activate the system. And then once you go past a certain, basically, throttle position, the engine will attempt to maintain that torque for you, which is kind of handy. So with that all taken care of, let's go ahead and hit a couple more switches here. One of the things I mentioned is this display would change. And like I promised, the display changed. Now, as you'll probably notice, we don't have a lot of control over this display. And it says we're on course. I can go up to 200 miles, and it still says we're on course. You can also sit here and fiddle with all these buttons here, and you can see it doesn't really do much for us. I know that's just unfortunately part of the fun, I guess. I'll zoom out a little bit, see if that helps. But like I said, it's a stress switch. The good news is everything works, so do not panic as far as that goes. You will still be able to you'll read lines and things like that. Like, that's just not an issue. So that's easy. All right, so climb we're going to hit when we get into the air. Of course, if we needed to, we can come in here and switch to nav. Worth a warning, however, if you swing down here, you'll notice all the useful stuff. That's our weather radar, by the way. You'll notice all of our useful stuff here. Who put the tilt on this all the way down? Who does that? We have our yaw damper and our autopilot. The switches for them are down here, but I like to hit pitch reset while I'm down here as well. All right, everything's looking good. And you can see we've got a lovely runway. I've kind of cheated a little bit here. It's basically sitting there on my right. Very, very minimal winds today. So one of the things that makes me crazy about this plane is when you release the parking brake, it's got places to be. So what you're supposed to use is the beta range on this one. Now, the beta range is a little tricky to get access to. Now, if I hold down the reverse button and I push forward, you'll notice there's no reverse. The press and hold button for reverse does not work the same way in this aircraft. It's just kind of one of those fun little things that they do just to make your life a little bit more exciting. And again, I think that might be a binding issue on my hand. It's something I'm not going to go too crazy with. All right, let's get ourselves nice and safe here. I just want to do a couple last-second checks before we go jumping into the sky there. I fixed it. I misspoke. My apologies. We do have a regular beta range. Hold down your hold to reverse thrust button. You can kind of fiddle it. I had a joystick issue the other day, so unfortunately I had to rebind everything. Kind of a pain in the butt. You can see you got in the beta range. All right, let's get ready for takeoff. So a couple little things we have to do is we're going to come down here. We're going to make sure everything's all set to the correct mode. Max works perfectly fine. I've got that ready to go just like that. Our CTOT is armed and ready to go at 90%. You'll see that misbehave during takeoff here. And the nice thing with this one is you just push the throttles forward until it gets to that happy spot. All right, let's do it. Go ahead and get some landing lights on just to give everybody a heads up to know that we're taking off here. Yeah, look at that. That windsock is definitely in our favorite today. Give it a tap of power. Does not take much at all to get this thing going. It's going to holler at us like crazy. You'll see exactly what I mean. All right, looking good, looking good. Go ahead and gentle on the power. Of course, now I can just jam it into beta. Oh, that's so much nicer. Yeah, I could just use the beta range. Beta range, by the way, if you want to imagine taking the propeller and basically adjusting its pitch so it doesn't do anything, so it doesn't produce any extra thrust for you. All right, we're ready for takeoff. We've got our lights turned on. Our systems are all set. CTOT is set. We've got plenty of fuel for flight. Our radar is set. This looks like it's doing nothing. It actually is working. Don't panic. It will work. And if it kind of gets weird on you, there's a couple little things we can do to kind of get around it. And I'm kind of hoping those things happen, so we can basically show you how to get around it. Like I said, beautiful, beautiful airplane. It just needs just a little tiny bit more work. All right, let's go sneak under the runway, clear the approach. Nobody's coming today. It's a lovely day. A little warm, definitely humid. I took a walk this morning and basically got melted. Oh, easy on the brakes. Use a little bit of right propeller here to try to get it snapping around a little bit nicer. There we go. And hold the brakes just like that. So, okie-doke, we'll go set that. Now we're ready for takeoff. We're just going to do a couple last-second checks. Power looks good. Flaps looks good. We're going to use full power for takeoff and let everything else kind of go. We're looking for a rotate speed. Check this out. Check this out. Check this out. Rotate 105. Ha-ha! Is that handy? All right, let's go. Rotate. catch up a little bit. Bring up that click of flaps once we've got plenty of room underneath us. And now we're going to start heading our way towards our destination. Bring in a little bit of that nice, lovely trim. All right. Taps of trim, kind of get everything all squared away as we enjoy a nice, gentle turn here. Flight director on. Put it about right here. That seems a little steep. And we're going to shut it off, turn it back on. It's a little bit better. Much better. Now I can engage the flight director. That looks good to me. We'll go ahead and engage navigational hold. It's going to take a moment to kind of grab onto it. And then, of course, we can engage the climb mode. And what you'll notice here is the climb mode is a stupid climb. It's a 120 climb. You'll see exactly what I mean when the nose starts doing silly things. I like where I've got it. I think it's a lot more comfortable for the passengers. All right, that's taken care of. I'm going to pull the throttle back just a touch. We're going to go ahead and pop off CTOT. We don't need it anymore. Again, you can watch our power changes just a little bit. And we're going to bring our torque to the green range. Right now, you can see 100 torque is basically our absolute peak here. If I push a little bit more throttle, like it says about 95, and you can see we're safely inside the green here with no concern. Temperature is also within the green. That's one of the big things, and N1 would be the other thing to watch out for with anything related to a turboprop. But again, our engine RPM, perfectly acceptable. And now we can't even back that up if we wanted to. If I play with my propeller handle, you can see the propeller RPM comes down, but there is no propeller handle here. So it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, kind of one of those things. Another thing we want to look out for during our initial climb out here as we start cruising upwards to our 8,500 feet is that we just want to double check to make sure that we're pressurizing okay. And you can see we are picking up some cabin pressure, which is exactly what we want. And again, we just want to get a little tiny bit higher. We are climbing like an absolute rocket, which is what's awesome about aircraft like this. These turboprops definitely have their little perks as far as performance goes. 7,000. I'm just going to make sure and confirm that everything levels off when it's supposed to. Some days it does, some days it does not. Like I said, another 1,000 feet to go. Looks good. Swinging down here, we can check our FIPL page, and you can see that this number should be getting smaller once we get to that position. All right, that looks good to me. And you can see 56.6 miles. It'll be the new number when this figures out what it wants to do. And now you can see we got an estimate about 12 minutes. And it gives us a time estimate, of course, with time as well. One cool thing here is if you hit this one, it'll actually estimate how much fuel you have as well as your endurance and range, which I just think is kind of cool if you ask me. I don't know, like little stuff like that's just cool. And again, with that navigation mode set, we're good. Now, one thing I want to point out while I'm at it, you notice this 293 here, which is the recommended desired track. If I actually come down here, you'll see 293 is roughly what it is. And the other thing worth noting too is if you take a look, the altitude is disregarded my climb. The other way around, I should say. My climb is disregarded my altitude. So I'm going to go ahead and tap that real quickly here. We'll level off at 10,500 feet, which is perfectly acceptable. I think everybody in the back of the airplane just ricocheted off the roof. Sorry about that, folks. And now what we're going to go ahead is reduce some power as well. You can see the torque has already come down pretty substantially because, again, there's less air up here. So we can just kind of tweak that just a little bit. And that's looking delightful right there. Nice. Very good. And again, it will settle down at that 10,500, and we kind of dive down onto it. Now, like I was saying earlier, as you can see from that display, it just doesn't quite work right. Now, if I come over here and press this button, it just doesn't work. Like, why don't, like, why? Like, you know what I mean? It's a shame, though, because this is, like I said, kind of a neat airplane. Good performance, too. It's a little slow in a climb, I noticed, but in general, once it's going, it's going. All right, this is the easy part of the flight. This is the part where you get to kind of crack your knuckles and take a nap. I'll get you when we get a little closer. All right, we're a little bit closer. Destination is off the nose there. One of the really tricky things, among other things with this aircraft, is if you come down here, you'll notice that the approach button is grayed out. That's a bit of a problem for us because without the ability to dial in instrument approaches, it makes things a little more involved. Another problem, of course, is that we can't go ripping over here to the tune page for the purposes of essentially adjusting like manual approach or anything along those lines. Now, the good news is we can cheat a little because we can still fly approaches manually. So what we have today, of course, is we're going to be coming in on ILS here. We're going to be doing a runway 24. So I can actually come up here and manually dial in the approaches that are required for the purposes of a flight. Now, one of the things you got to be mindful of here is you can see what I'm transferring here, that it's affecting this guy down here. It's not touching the one right here, which is the one that we, of course, would prefer when we get a little bit closer. So we've got about, it says about 5 minutes to go. You can actually see the airport. So we're basically going to overfly the airport, do a power circle, and then come in on the approach and make it pretty easy. So we're going to go ahead and altitude alert. Everything's looking pretty good here. Notice there is no, I would call it descend button, if that makes sense. So instead, I'm going to press VS. We're going to come down here where this guy is located, and we're just going to go ahead and crank it to get about 1,500 feet per minute. It's usually plenty. Pull the throttle back when you do this, by the way. Otherwise, you will be really surprised that even though this aircraft is a little on the sluggish side, it will absolutely impress you as far as getting you down on the ground in a hurry. So again, what we're going to do here is we're going to fly, we're going to do reverse course, do a power circle, and then come in for that approach. All right, we're starting our little power circle here, our reverse course. You can see the runway we're going to be landing on is directly below us. And what I've done is I basically used the heading bug here to kind of do a little bit of fancy flying. We can control the heading bug right here. You can see it works well, and I've gone ahead and flipped on the heading hold button as well, just for the purposes of helping out a little bit with that purpose. Now, one of the crazy things here is we can actually fly this as a back course too. So you can see right now we'd have to actually kind of go this way in order to bring this back that way. And if we actually look out the window, you can see very clearly that we do need to bring ourselves over to the right quite a bit here to basically kind of straighten out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and order that nice right turn there. It does not need to be that much. I'll do about 57, 60 degrees, 65, somewhere in there. There we go. So now we're going to go ahead and square that one off, and we're going to basically cross the river. Springfield, Massachusetts is going to be coming up. We're just going to miss it. You can see it's right there. And then we just turn around and basically fly this thing down to the ground, making it nice and easy. All right, let's bring it on in. So as you can see in the bottom left corner there, we have that lovely little handy-dandy old-school CDI for the purposes of doing our approach, but everything's looking pretty good. Big thing with this one is that it's surprisingly stable. You'll find it handles much more like a brick than you might be used to. You can see I just dropped in 2 clicks of flaps, and this thing just went boing and basically bounced right over the glide slope. Actually having to push that nose down substantially to kind of compensate for it. So as far as approach speeds go, you can see here, looking down here, we got a VREF 35 degrees is a 106. So we're doing 106 now. We're just bringing the last couple clicks of flaps as we come swinging in this way. There we go. There we go. And I can see we're not getting any glide slope information, which is disappointing. Unfortunately for us, if we were to come over here and tap the approach hold, you'll notice that nothing changes down here. Unfortunately, like I was saying, there are several known limitations, and that is just another one of those unfortunate limitations of this particular aircraft. It's not to say we can't do it ourselves, which is exactly what we're going to do and make it look easy, but that's, again, part of the fun, as always. There we are. I'm getting a little slow. I'm just going to add a little bit of power. Now, if we were flying the real one, we'd be setting up our constant torque into approach mode just like that. Like I say, it feels more like a stress button, but I don't know what they're doing. There we go. There we go. Fortunately, I'm distracting my attention between trying to follow the lovely glide slope there, which isn't working, versus just looking out the window and dealing with this lovely crosswind that we're experiencing. Whee! Oh man, that's real. That's real. Yeah, a little bit of backing up at that throttle, and the thing should come down real nice on its own. I can tell you we're extremely fast, and the easiest way to identify that is to look down at your attitude indicator. If your attitude indicator is pointing severely down, it means you're fast. There we go, a lovely runway 24. Nice and easy. When you settle, this thing sinks quickly. You'll see what I mean. Delightful. Full reverse. Actually, we don't really need full reverse, but we'll take it. Delightful. So as you can see, a quirky little airplane. A lot of things do not work as well as they should. But that being said, it still kind of looks neat. It flies pretty stable. It's got pretty good speed to it. Like, it does not surprise me that, like, you can get as high and as fast as you can with it. The FMS, it's pretty basic, but it kind of works. And it's, I don't know, quirky in its own sort of fun way. Lack of really, really good instrument approaches makes this a very difficult aircraft to recommend for the VATSIM folks out there. But again, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Enjoy.